Russia's battlefield performance in Ukraine has raised questions about the efficacy of the world's second-largest military. Besides heavy losses, Moscow's troops have been forced to make hasty retreats, in the wake of Ukrainian counter-offensives. Experts say the current structural weaknesses in the Russian military are due to the reforms initiated in 2008. However, when Putin launched the invasion of Ukraine, some of the reforms had barely been implemented. Experts say the Russian military structure is partly to be blamed for the delay and the struggles in achieving Putin's goals in Ukraine. Russian military reforms, since the fall of the Soviet Union, sought to abandon the old conscript heavy mobilization army. Putin wanted to replace Soviet-style regiments that were slow and ineffective during the 1980 Afghanistan campaign and the Chechen wars. Reforms were made to transform the Russian military from 500-man Soviet-style battalions to battalion tactical groups with 800 to 900 troops. Before the invasion began, the Russian army had 170 combat-ready battalion tactical groups. Over 100 such battalion tactical groups have participated in the war in Ukraine since February. According to the Russian military doctrine, each battalion tactical group is given responsibility for a front line of 5 kilometers. Russia's modern military structure expects the battalions to form echelons when attacking the enemy. A typical Soviet army formed 2 echelons, both controlled by the same combined arms commander. Russian ground forces must have 2 or more battalion tactical groups, producing 2 echelons, each controlled by different commanders. Experts say this disunity of command in the military affects Russia's offensive, as well as defensive, operations. After the 2008 Georgia War, the idea of smaller and maneuverable battalion tactical groups appealed to Russia. However, the war in Ukraine shows that smaller units may be more maneuverable, but not more effective, while controlling larger spaces. Experts say it is difficult for a battalion with 800 men to maintain a 5-kilometer front line, especially when only about 200 are infantrymen. Experts say one of the most significant weaknesses of the new Russian force structure is its leadership model. Unlike the US, Russia does not allow its non-commissioned and junior officers to make decisions on their own. Experts say lack of delegation is one reason why the Russian military is performing so poorly in Ukraine. Battalion tactical groups are commanded by majors and lieutenant colonels, who are less influential, mid-level officers. Russian commanders have reportedly not been effective in demanding and receiving replacement personnel and equipment. In one alleged phone call intercepted by Kyiv, a Russian officer complains his battalion commander did not even know the objective. One of the reasons Putin lost many top generals is because top Russian officials have been forced to make frequent trips to the front lines. Compromised unity of command is not the only headache Russian ground forces are facing in Ukraine. The problems of inadequate command structures have been made worse by untested or outdated communications equipment. The Russian army invading Ukraine was equipped with 2 new communication systems, the Azert radio and the Era military smartphone. However, to Putin's dismay, these did not work well and most Russian units began using older devices, with Ukrainian SIM cards. Hence, it became easy for Ukrainian military intelligence to intercept communications between Russian commanders. Experts say the older communications equipment did not work effectively because it had a limited range of 4 kilometers. Another reason cited by analysts is that the old systems required more supporting equipment such as relay trucks and towers. Analysts explain that Russian military leaders did not add heavy equipment maintenance crews to infantry battalions. Russian tank and armored personnel drivers are trained mechanics so they can perform routine mechanical maintenance. However, they may need additional help due to shortage of specialty equipment in the battlefield. Reports claim for 7 months the Russian military did not mobilize combat medics or sanitors. These medics accompany troops into combat zones to provide first aid to the wounded, and evacuate them from the battlefield. Russian forces in Ukraine reportedly have not had the assistance of combat medics and have had to evacuate the wounded themselves. This means Russian units withdrawing from the battle lost 1 or 2 soldiers, trying to evacuate the wounded.